In the dark lands of Nosgoth, fate is not a thread, but a blade, drawn, bloodied, and cruel. This is the story of Kain, a nobleman betrayed, a soul condemned, a monster born anew. Welcome to Blood Omen Legacy of Kain, a fan-made serialized audiobook adaptation. Chapter 1, The Last Night. Vae Victus, woe to the conquered. I was told that this world was as cruel as it was beautiful, but I did not understand. Not until I died. Siegsturl, a town so insignificant, so utterly forgettable, that even the crows flew over it with disdain. A slouching cluster of buildings cloaked in damp fog, nestled deep in the belly of Nosgoth's forgotten countryside. It was not marked on any nobleman's map, nor whispered of in courtly rumour. The only stories it birthed were those of rust, rot, and regret. And yet, it is where I died. Not on the battlefield as a warrior should, not before a roaring crowd or defending my name in a duel. No. My death came quietly, like a thief in the dark, a whisper, a betrayal, an insult. I had no business there, no obligation to grace such a squalid place with my presence. But fate, that cruel playwright, had cast me in a role without rehearsal, and I, ever the arrogant noble, stepped onto the stage with disdain and certainty. I believed myself untouchable. I believed wrong. It began as boredom. Courtly duties had dulled my senses. The endless parade of simpering lords, soft-handed and treacherous, weighed upon me like a millstone. I longed for something beyond idle games of intrigue. I needed the world to remind me I was alive. My liege had spoken of unrest in the western provinces, bandits, mercenaries, minor border conflicts. I seized the opportunity, requested leave, and departed with a sword at my hip and purpose in my stride. I sought danger, perhaps even death, if only to feel the fire of consequence burn once more. Siegsturl was not my destination. It was a detour, a way station. I recall no sign that bore its name. I arrived beneath a sky that wept endlessly, the kind of rain that seeps into your bones and drowns thought. The roads were rivers of mud. My steed limped beneath me, worn from travel, and I, in turn, sought reprieve. The lights of a tavern flickered with dying stars through the fog. The building leaned on itself, timber groaning under the weight of age and mildew. Inside it was dim and foul. The hearth spat more smoke than flame. The floorboards protested at every step. Eyes turned toward me, not with welcome, but with wariness. My cloak, fine and fur-lined, marked me as foreign. My bearing noble, my purse heavy. I should have left. I ordered wine. It tasted like vinegar. I ate stew that clung to the spoon with a stubborn malice. Yet I remained. There was something... No, let me not cloak it in falsehood. I stayed because of pride, because I would not be chased from that place by glances or foul meat. The innkeeper's daughter caught my eye, not for her beauty, though she had some. No, it was the way her hands trembled when she served me, the way she looked over her shoulder, as though something unseen stood always at her back. Fear lived in that place like mould in stone. I asked nothing. I cared not for the troubles of peasants. But I watched. There is a particular kind of tension, an atmosphere I have since come to recognize as the scent of impending violence. Siegstühl had it in abundance. The patrons were too quiet, their movements too rehearsed, a shared secret passed between glances and lowered tankards. The fire died, the shadows grew longer, my wine soured in the cup. I had thought to leave, but something kept me anchored. Stubbornness, suspicion, a hunger for anything that might tear me from the stupor of routine. I stepped outside, seeking air untainted by wood smoke and suspicion. The streets were silent. Rain pattered on rooftops like the ticking of a clock. I remember standing beneath the eaves, hand on the hilt of my blade when it happened. A whisper of motion, a flicker in the mist, then pain. A dagger found my side. I turned, half in shock. Another cut my shoulder. The third, cruel and low, tore into my gut. I gasped, my blood hot in the cold night. My sword cleared its sheath, but too late. Shadows surrounded me. I struck once, metal met flesh, but then they were upon me. Blows rained. I stumbled, fell. The mud drank my blood greedily. My cloak spread like wings around me. My mouth filled with the taste of iron and filth. My eyes found the sky, and the stars, those cold watchers, did nothing. I remember the sound of my own heartbeat slowing, a wet, thunderous thud behind my ears. My body, once proud and refined, reduced to meat in the gutter. My thoughts slowed. My fingers twitched. Reaching for a sword, I no longer had the strength to lift. I did not rage. I did not cry out. There was no dramatic last stand, only a slow fade, like smoke in the wind. Death was not a door. It was a fall, a descent into stillness, into nothing. No light greeted me, no judgment, only a silence so vast it became a presence. I was unmade, a soul adrift in void, stripped of voice, flesh, and purpose. Time lost meaning. Seconds stretched into eternities. Memories unraveled. I reached for the warmth of life, but found only frost. And then a whisper. Not sound, not language. A thought pressed against the walls of my unbeing. It was not benevolent. It was not cruel. It was simply power. It did not offer comfort. It did not speak of redemption. It offered one thing: vengeance. Would I return, it asked? Would I kill? Would I make the world bleed for what it had taken? And I, stripped of all else, clung to the only thing I had left. Yes. The void recoiled. Pain surged. Not the pain of a wound, but the pain of being born again through fire. A soul seared into flesh, a scream I could not voice. And then breath. I awoke gasping, as if surfacing from deep water. My chest burned, my limbs ached. I lay upon cold stone beneath an open sky. Rain fell, soft and endless. but I was not as I had been. My heart beat slowly, unnaturally. My skin was pale, my fingers stiff. The world was louder. I could hear the drip of water miles away, the heartbeats of mice in the brush, the whisper of wind through distant leaves, and over it all, hunger. It clung to me, wrapped around my spine like a serpent. It was not mere appetite. It was need, desperate, ancient. I could feel it in my throat, in my gut, in the marrow of my bones. I stumbled into the forest. My feet moved without thought. My vision blurred not from weakness but from focus. Every sound, every scent was a map drawn in blood. Then I saw him. A peasant, alone, lantern in hand, his back to me, his heartbeat steady, oblivious. I lunged. I do not remember sinking my teeth into his neck, only the taste. Gods, the taste. Warmth flooded me, strength, clarity. The world shifted, became sharp, vibrant. I could see the veins beneath his skin, hear his final breath before it came. When I stepped back, he was pale, lifeless, and I felt alive for the first time since my murder. This was no curse. This was power. I remember staring at my blood-stained hands. They shook, not with fear, but with exhilaration. I laughed then, a low, bitter laugh that scraped against my throat. I had not merely returned, I had ascended. I found more men that night, a pair of guards, poorly armed and poorly trained. They shouted warnings, raised their weapons. It made no difference. I moved like wind through grass. Their strikes missed. Mine did not. Blood bathed the roots of the forest. My strength grew, my senses sang. I learned what it meant to be more than mortal. And yet, something within me mourned. A flicker of the man I had been. A memory of pride, of law, of honor. I silenced it. I looked to the sky again, now without fear. Once I had believed in justice, in order, in the strength of law and lineage. Now I believed in blood. I had returned not as a man, but as something more. Nosgoth would learn that death could be defied, that vengeance had a name, and that name was Kain.